Your kid pushes away their plate once more, and instinctively, you start pleading, negotiating, or heading back to the kitchen. Here's the truth, though. These natural reactions, while completely relatable, are quietly reinforcing the rejection behavior. French families use one straightforward principle supported by two hidden foundations that eliminate dinnertime struggles entirely. Imagine this scenario. Evening arrives at 6:30. The meal is on the table. Your kid glances down and announces, "This isn't good." Your response, compromise, begins. "How about 3 spoonfuls, then you get dessert?" You coax. "Please just sample the protein." Or, worn out from the day, you surrender and prepare pasta instead. Standing there making meal number 2, that familiar feeling washes over you. Frustration mixed with self-doubt and bewilderment. You're putting in tremendous effort. Yet somehow, eating together has transformed into warfare. The 3 feeding errors that intensify selective eating. Here's the reality. Your loving intentions are unintentionally creating more problems. Once you grasp what's truly occurring, you can change course. Let's examine 3 errors you're likely committing unknowingly right now. Error number 1, providing alternative options. When your kid rejects the meal and you create something different, you've delivered a powerful lesson. Refusing strongly enough means "I'll receive my preference." Error number 2, coercion. "Come on, just another spoonful." Each time this happens, you trigger the autonomy struggle. The harder you push, the stronger they pull back. Error number 3, constant snacking. Those crackers at 4 o'clock, the cereal bar passed over while driving home from preschool, the juice given while they're occupied playing. These appear innocent, but here's what's really happening. You're eliminating the single factor that encourages kids to experiment with unfamiliar foods: appetite. So what's different about French parenting? They implement one straightforward principle with 2 supporting elements that rarely get discussed in America. But first, you need to comprehend why your kid acts this way initially. Because understanding the science makes everything clear. Why young children reject food, fear response, autonomy, and hunger science. Here's what's occurring inside your kid's developing brain. First, there's food neophobia. That's the scientific label for instinctive caution around unfamiliar foods. Consider your own adult experiences. When visiting a new eatery serving exotic cuisine, don't you feel somewhat cautious? That's neophobia. Your kid experiences that multiplied because their survival instincts are highly active. They're not being stubborn, they're being age-appropriately normal. That's the biological programming. But there's another dynamic operating that's even more influential. Second, there's the autonomy struggle. Picture if your partner hovered during dinner saying, "Just a few more bites of vegetables, dear, you really need them." You'd feel like rebelling, correct? Your toddler experiences the identical reaction. When you apply eating pressure, even subtle pressure, their mind interprets it as authority-imposing control, and people naturally resist. Research demonstrates that parental pressure tactics actually reduce food consumption, not increase it. Then there's the third component, the one capable of overriding both previous factors when properly managed. Third, there's the hunger rhythm. Have you noticed that genuine hunger, not mindless snacking, makes even basic foods delicious? That's your hunger rhythm, and your kid has lost connection with it. Most American kids never feel genuine appetite at mealtimes because we've been conditioned that hunger equals danger, something requiring constant prevention. French families understand something different, and this part will seem unconventional. French parents allow their kids to experience hunger before mealtimes intentionally, not deprivation, not neglect, appropriate hunger. Because experiencing moderate hunger before meals isn't harmful, it's organization. It's the biological mechanism that activates everything else. The French principle explained. Single menu plus required sampling plus appetite window. All right, here's the French principle. And listen carefully because there are 3 components and most people only hear about the first. The principle is single menu. One household, one meal. In French homes, there's a single option at dinner. The parent determines what's offered. No substitutes, no backup choices, no discussions. Before thinking this sounds strict, let me explain why it's actually the most nurturing approach. This isn't domineering, it's systematic. The parent's responsibility is determining what, when, and where food appears. The kid's responsibility is determining if and how much they consume. This is the fundamental principle of healthy feeding dynamics. You supply, they choose. You're not compelling them to finish everything. You're simply not operating a custom kitchen, but that's not the secret. Part 2, the required sampling. In French homes, kids aren't forced to consume everything served. They're not forced to finish anything, but they must taste it. Just one respectful taste every single time. And here's the language that works. You needn't enjoy it, darling. You must taste it so your palate develops. How do you implement this without creating conflict? You use descriptive language. When your kid samples something unfamiliar, you ask, is it crispy or tender? Is it savory or bland? What's the aroma like? This accomplishes something clever. It redirects attention from whether they're consuming to what the characteristics are. It transforms tasting into exploration instead of obligation. French parents view this as palate development, similar to teaching literacy. You wouldn't abandon reading practice just because it's challenging. Identical reasoning applies to eating, a small sample. And for anxious kids, even smelling or touching the food to their mouth qualifies as sampling. No pressure to consume, no criticism, just repeated exposure. Because research reveals this. Kids require 8 to 15 encounters with unfamiliar food before accepting it. Most American parents abandon after 3 attempts. And for most households, those 2 components alone generate substantial improvement. But for consistent daily success, there's a third element that's absolutely essential. But here's what rarely gets mentioned, and this explains why most households struggle with the French method, even when attempting it. Part 3. The 2-hour appetite window. This is the invisible requirement, the component that enables everything else. Without this, the other 2 principles fail consistently. French kids don't graze. They have organized mealtimes and one snack period called afternoon snack, typically around 4 o'clock. A modest snack, perhaps some fruit and bread, but then nothing except water until dinner. And carefully, don't let them consume excessive water immediately before the meal, or that fills their stomach too. No snack crackers, no juice drinks, no just something small at 5:30. If your kid consumed snacks an hour before dinner, this entire system collapses regardless of how perfectly you follow other principles, because they lack appetite. And without appetite, there's no biological motivation to sample the vegetables. You need a 2 to 3 hour appetite window before dinner. This isn't starvation. This isn't neglect. This is allowing natural appetite to develop so when they sit at the table, their body is genuinely prepared to eat. And that's when transformation happens. When a kid arrives at the table genuinely hungry, something transforms. Their resistance diminishes. Their natural inquisitiveness emerges. Their mind becomes more receptive to sampling unfamiliar foods. Appetite is the missing component. How to apply this method at home, step by step. Let me demonstrate exactly what this looks like practically. Step 1. Serve one balanced meal. Include variety, protein, vegetables, a starch, but ensure there's at least one familiar food on the table. By familiar food, I mean something you're certain they'll consume without resistance, like the bread or fruit. This guarantees your kid always has something available, which reduces your stress and theirs. Step 2. Require a respectful taste of everything. Use the phrasing, you needn't enjoy it. You must taste it so your palate develops. Step 3. After they taste, they choose what else to consume from what's available. You don't monitor, you don't track bites. Step 4. Maintain the timing. If they don't consume much, the next meal arrives at the next scheduled time. No emergency snacks. Step 5. Don't comment on what or quantity they consume. Let me demonstrate the exact interaction. Your kid sits down. They notice vegetables on their plate. They immediately announce, I dislike these vegetables. You respond calmly, you needn't enjoy them, darling, you must taste them, just one taste so your palate develops. They hesitate. You wait, no pressure, no hovering. Finally, they take a tiny bite, they grimace, maybe even a theatrical gagging performance. You remain completely calm, you lean in with curiosity. All right, so what did you observe? Was it crispy or tender? They pause, considering. Tender and mushy. Interesting, tender and mushy, thank you for tasting. Now, what else would you prefer from the table? They consume the protein and starch. They don't touch the vegetables again. And that right there, that's success because they tasted them. That's exposure number 1. This is where most American parents quit, but here's what they're overlooking. Next time you serve those vegetables, they'll be slightly more familiar. By the 8th time, they might consume 2 bites. By the 15th, they might actually enjoy them. This is the extended approach. And feedback from households implementing this exact method shows a clear pattern. Within 2 weeks, the vast majority of parents report reduced mealtime conflicts. Within a month, their kids are sampling foods they previously refused without prompting. Not because we forced them, because we established the conditions that made their bodies desire to eat. What to do if your child still refuses food, parent Q and A now? As you're considering implementing this, 3 questions probably just emerged. Let me address them. Question 1. What if my kid doesn't consume anything at dinner? Here's the thing. If your kid arrives at the table genuinely hungry and there's at least one familiar food available, they will consume something. Kids have incredibly powerful survival mechanisms. Their bodies won't allow them to starve when food is present. They might not consume much and they might not consume what you hoped, but they will consume. Hungry kids eat. Now, if they refuse everything, here's your response. Nothing. You stay calm, you say, "All right, you don't have to eat, but this is tonight's meal." The kitchen closes after dinner and breakfast is at 7 o'clock a.m., and then you follow through. One skipped meal doesn't harm a typically developing healthy, hydrated kid. Obviously, if your kid has medical conditions requiring strict calorie intake, you follow medical guidance. But for most kids, what harms them is discovering that refusing food yields special treatment. They'll be hungry, and you know what occurs. They'll consume breakfast. Question 2. What if they have extreme selective eating? If your kid has a diagnosed feeding condition, sensory challenges, or severe food aversion, you need specialized professional support. This method is for typically developing kids with common selective eating. But here's what I've observed. Most kids don't have a condition. They have a pattern that's been accidentally reinforced, and patterns can transform. Question 3. What if they refuse the required taste? This is where you maintain the boundary gently but firmly. The tasting requirement stays consistent. It's the one thing you don't compromise. You're not forcing quantity. You're not demanding they finish, just one taste. If they refuse, you stay calm. You don't remove the plate. You simply say, "In our household, we taste everything once. Take your time." And then you consume your own meal. You're not punishing them. You're just maintaining the expectation. And usually they take the taste because they're hungry. But if they still refuse, you simply clear the plate when the meal ends. No anger, no lecture. The lesson occurs when they feel hungry later, not during the conflict now. Descriptive talk techniques that replace pressure. Let's go deeper on this descriptive talk technique because it's one of your most powerful tools. In America, we've been taught the silent rule. Don't praise eating. Don't criticize not eating. Stay neutral. That's better than pressure. But French parents do something more effective. They make food intriguing. Instead of "excellent job eating your vegetables," which creates performance pressure, you say, "Does it taste different from last time? What does it remind you of? Is it sweeter than the carrots?" This teaches your kid to pay attention to their food, to actually notice what they're consuming. This is the foundation of conscious eating. You're teaching them food vocabulary, you're teaching them to be curious, and you're removing all pressure. Now, adjust your language to your kid's age. For a 2-year-old, is it hard or soft? For a 5-year-old, does it taste different from last time? For an 8-year-old, what does it remind you of? The principle stays the same. The vocabulary grows with them. A few other strategies that work alongside this. The exposure timeline. Your kid needs 8 to 15 exposures. Keep offering. No pressure, just presentation. Family meal modeling. Consume the same meal. Let them observe you enjoying the vegetables. Don't comment on it, just eat. If your kid asks, "Do you enjoy the broccoli, Mom?" you can say, "I do, it's crunchy and slightly sweet." Then continue eating, that's it. Kids learn more from observation than from instruction. Predictable rhythm. Have consistent meal and snack times. When your kid knows that snack time is at 3 o'clock p.m. and dinner is at 6 o'clock p.m., their body learns to anticipate food at those times. Their appetite aligns with the schedule. Realistic timeline. How long it takes to transform selective eating. Look, I know this feels challenging right now. You might be thinking, "But I've tried being firm before and it ended in tears." Or, "My kid is different. This won't work for us." Let me give you realistic expectations about what's going to happen. Days 1 to 3, testing phase. Your kid might skip a meal or consume very little. This is completely normal and not harmful. They're learning the new expectations and testing whether you'll surrender. Don't surrender. Days 4 to 7, you'll notice the first shift. They'll start consuming more at meals because they're genuinely hungry. Weeks 2 to 3, the conflicts will dramatically decrease. This starts to feel easier. By 4 to 6 weeks, this becomes your new normal. Everything you've been doing up until now, you were doing it because you care, because you love your kid. You just didn't have all the information. And now you do. You're not teaching them to eat in this moment. You're teaching them a life skill. You're teaching them that hunger is normal and manageable, that unfamiliar foods become familiar with time, that meals are predictable and safe. Remember at the beginning when I said that every backup meal trains your kid to refuse. You're not doing that anymore. You're teaching them something completely different. Appetite, organization, and gentle exposure will do the heavy lifting. Your responsibility is just to stay consistent and trust the process. Take a breath. You've got this. Now, this French method solves selective eating. But if your kid refuses meals, the real issue might be what's occurring between meals. And most parents are making at least 3 feeding errors that destroy appetite without realizing it. Click the video on screen now to discover what they are.